6. Brooke, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4, project report. Mr. Dan, how are you doing today?
Doing well, how are you? Give you a quick update on what progressed last month. Out in Mill Valley, new flooring down the corridors of the existing building has started. Food service equipment is coming in. Epoxy floors are going to be wrapping up here shortly. Kitchen and other bathrooms. Painting of the library is complete. There's some light fixtures hanging. The circle clouds will be coming next week. Light fixtures are kind of going in grid and other places in the building. The hard surface play lot is paved and striped. Playground work is all done. One thing left remains is landscape. So as soon as landscaper finishes at the new middle school, it's going to move forward to Mill Valley. At the middle school, we're wrapping up punch list items inside the building. Last week, Thursday, I walked through the building inspector and gave it a thumbs up. We just need someone from the planning department to come to and walk the site. That's scheduled for tomorrow or Wednesday. And then we'll have our occupancy permit. And we got owner training scheduled for the new systems within the building this week and next week. So by end of the month, everybody will be understanding on how the building works and take it from there. Our Country Meadows finishes are continuing. Flooring is being installed in the classrooms. Casework deliveries keep coming. Painting in the classrooms is ongoing. Ceramic tile in all the public restrooms are being installed right now. And this week and next week we're getting all our deliveries for marker boards, specialties, toilet accessories, that kind of thing. So things coming together. About 4 weeks left. Trying to push and kind of wrapped up. Questions?
Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Jeremiah, would I just give some update on the other projects that we have going on?
Yeah, so the pool is just about 100% enclosed. There's a picture attached here from the inside. They're working on pouring the concrete on the deck. The roof should be completed by the end of the week, and the tile is starting to be installed. At the field outside, turf, the drain systems and stone base are all installed. Goal posts are in, and the turf, the actual carpet itself will be starting this week, and they say it's a 2 to 3 week process, so we should be on time definitely in time for the football season. The scoreboard is in production and scheduled to ship on 8/16. We're going back to the Plan Commission on August 7th to request that the scoreboard be placed at the center north end of the field. They approved it to be inside the track, and we would like it to be on the outside of the track on the far north end, to kind of create a bowl between the bleachers and the concession stand and the scoreboard. So it's within the, I think it's 58 feet that the city needs to be between the property line and where we would ask it to be. And lastly, I know Dan ran out of here, but they're actually going to be helping us with the install, and I think it's pretty much covered by them, so that was really a generous offer by them.
Just then, just the transitions, schools, just reminders of the open houses, Monday, September 17th for Mill Valley, and then the ribbon cutting and open house for Muskego Lakes Middle School is August 14th. I think that's all we have to discuss.
Thank you. Item 5, consent agenda. Could I get a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Is there anything in consent agenda that has separate questions or needs separate consideration? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. We have student representation, public forum. It's your opportunity to bring anything to the attention of the school board. Going once, don't all rush up and create a single file. Twice. All right. Item 8, superintendent's report. Dr. Thompson.
Okay, we're going to start with some recognitions. First of Jeremiah Johnson.
Yada, yada, yada. It's a certificate of appreciation. The Muskego, Norway School Board congratulates Jeremiah Johnson on being selected by the Wisconsin Policy Forum to receive the Gene B. Taylor Leader of the Future Award. This prestigious award is conferred to a non-elected official 40 years of age or younger in local government or an employee of a school district who demonstrates individual excellence or innovation in everyday administration of services or programs. The distinct honor recognizes Jeremiah Johnson for his contributions to the Muskego, Norway School District in creating a workplace safety initiative that significantly reduced workplace injuries, has enacted an energy sustainability program resulting in $2 million in energy savings, has led aggregate construction projects in excess of $50 million, and has developed a mobile phone application for crisis protocols district-wide. Through his commitment to excellence over the past 16 years, Jeremiah Johnson has grown from a part-time building maintenance position to a leadership position as Director of Operations and Human Resources. Jeremiah Johnson has exhibited enthusiasm, energy, and professionalism while building rapport with administration, staff, community, and I'll add the board. The Muskego, Norway School Board hereby commends Jeremiah for his outstanding service that brings honor not only to himself, his family, but also to the Muskego, Norway School District and community, and it's dated and signed by the board officers. And congratulations.
Take a picture. Perfect, thank you.
Speech?
I'd like to thank Rick for reading this. Yeah, I was really surprised when I got this, and I had to look into it a little bit more to find out what it was about. And as we were approaching the date where we would go, we kept getting emails saying, purchase your table now, and I thought maybe there'd be 8 tables, and it was a huge thing. So I was just dumbfounded. So thank you. I think I said it a couple years ago, but I just sat at a table at Lakeview 5 years ago at a miniature, like, first grade chair, interviewing with you guys and letting you guys know that I think I could do the job. And so thank you guys for taking a risk on me, for those of you that were on the board at the time. And just very fortunate to work with awesome people. We do great teamwork together, and this really represents the work of the team. Great teachers, great custodians, and awesome students. So thank you all.
Thank you, Jim. Now we get to recognize some students who did awesome at state. So girls, if you want to come on up, we'll read certificates for you, and then Coach Rainey, yes, and then Coach Rainey will come up and tell a little story about your journey.
So I'll read Nicole's, and then they'll just announce your name and what honors you got. The Certificate of Appreciation of the Muskego, Norway School Board hereby congratulates Nicole, is it Dort? Dort. For the honor of earning second place in the 4x800 meter relay with a time of 9:13:35, the Muskego High School record for the WIAA Girls Track and Field Competition. The Muskego, Norway School Board commends Nicole for her perseverance, team spirit, and commitment to excellence in the sport of girls track and field that has brought honor to herself, her family, and Muskego, Norway schools and community. It's dated and signed by the board officers. Congratulations. And then we have one for Brittany Help, and she was part of the 4x800 and amazingly at the same time. Gatesburg, congratulations. Oh, wait, I think you have another award. You were part of the 4x800, and you were also 4th place in the 1600 meter run at the state competition. And Kate Dawkins, and she took 2nd in the 1600 meter run with a Muskego High School record. Second place in the 3200 meter with a time of 10:47:07, also a record. And she was also a member of that grade 4 by 800 relay team. Congratulations.
Hey, Coach.
So if by story you mean brag a little bit, that's what I'm
Break away.
So the first thing about the 4x8 is that was a Muskego High School record by, usually when you break records, they're like by a second. You know, when you see on the Olympics, a second, maybe 2 seconds. This one was 15 seconds. And we did take second. However, we also ran in the entire history of the state of Wisconsin. They ran the 9th fastest time in state history as well. And then just to kind of talk a little bit about each one of these young ladies. Kate Spurka, she really had a season of perseverance. She hurt her hamstring pretty badly in the wintertime. And she really didn't run a step until May. So to give you an idea, the state meet is in the last weekend in May, and she really wasn't actually running. She was cross-training and doing all of that up until about the beginning of May. So she performed remarkably. She also, her mile time of 5 flat is also, had Kate not finished 5 seconds in front of her, would have been our school record. Previously, our school record was 5:03, set in 1994. So just to give you guys a little bit of an idea there. So she did a tremendous job again. Really had a season of perseverance. Nicole Dorr was a freshman for us, had never run anything above 400 meters until she came onto our track team. Her first race, I believe, was 2 minutes 43 seconds. Yeah. At the state meet, she ran 2:21. So she improved by about 22 seconds over the course of the year, which I think that math is right. I teach econ, not math. Which was really, really impressive and a testament to her commitment and work ethic. Brittany Helm. Brittany Helm is the definition of multi-sport athlete. She was a member of our JV and varsity. Saw a lot of time on the varsity team in basketball as well, in addition to running cross country and track. And Coach Hertz, he and I talk all the time and just speaks glowingly about her work ethic and what a great job she does. She also, she was one of 3, again, Muskego High School was actually the only team to have 3 girls qualify for the mile. Now you only get in the sectional, so we go from regionals to sectionals to state. You only get 3 girls per event or boys per event, so we actually had all 3. I saw that that's only happened in my research, and that only goes back to like the mid-80s. That's only happened once before in the history of the state, and to be fair, it was Nina. 2 of those girls were identical twins, doesn't count. They're genetically the same, doesn't count. But Brittany Helm did a great job. She qualified in 3 events in the mile, and as well as in the 2 miles. She actually did that as a freshman last year, so for her to do that in 2 events as well, this year as well, and then come back and help us out in the 4x8. And then finally, Kate Jockums. Kate Jockums ran in all 3 events. She set PRs in all 3 events. Her 4x8 split was 2:14.9. That's the 2nd fastest time in school history for Muskego. It also was the fastest relay split in Muskego history for the 4x8. So coming off of that, you'd think her legs might be a little tired. Turns out they weren't. By the way, that was an 8-second all-time PR as well. They weren't tired. Then she ran the 2 mile, and she only set a 12-second PR in that, placing 2nd overall. And then you would think our legs would be tired. I was tired just watching. That she would be tired after that. No, she was. She only set another 8-second PR in the mile. So all these things are just a great testament to their commitment to themselves and to the team. And I could honestly go on and on, but I will spare you. I will just say one thing. Please keep next year, September 22nd and October 13th open. Lake Danoon Middle School host the Warrior Invite as well. And I think it's the 25th anniversary of the Warrior Invite. And then we also are going to look to defend our conference championship in cross country. I know Dr. Thompson was there last year. It was a good time. We totally dominated. It was sweet. Am I wrong? And we'd love to see you guys out there as well. So thank you guys so much for this. I know that they really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the support and recognition. And if you want, I can stick around and maybe for a little while and brag some more. So,
We'll take a picture though.
oh,
Come on up and join us.
Excellent, thank you.
Good? Are we good?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was sitting on my computer at home watching, following you guys and texting Dr. Thompson.
they did this, they did that.
Any update on the boys baseball, Ted?
Extra innings right now, bottom of the eighth. We have about 3-2 going into the seventh. They tied it up. We scored 3 in the top of the eighth. Now it's the bottom of the eighth, still up 6-3. It's an amazing game.
Okay. As the high school team gets ready to provide their end of the year report on random drug testing and canine, I just want to welcome Courtney Arnson to her first school board meeting as the Director of Teaching and Learning for the elementary level. So congratulations and welcome to this phase. I mean, this is it's wonderful to have you sitting around with us and collaborating on a district level. So you've been amazing as a principal, and we look forward to your contributions at this level. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's all right. So actually, while Julie gets that up, Courtney, why don't you just give a little background? Now, you were a principal at Country Meadows, and you started as a coach, and just maybe share a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I think Terry is probably the only one I'm not familiar with. But so I was an educator, a teacher in the Elmbrook School District prior to coming to Muskego. And then came to Muskego, worked as an instructional coach for 1 year. So I traveled between Lakeview Elementary and Mill Valley for that year. And then from that position, became the principal at Country Meadows and was the principal there for 4 years. Worked with Tracy, and she was our PTO president for 3 of those years. And worked with the amazing team of elementary principals. Got to know the district office ESE staff, worked with the teachers, went through the unique experience, working closely. Last year with Sarah Stanley, with thinking the buildings would transition and I would be working with her, and then from there this opportunity came about, so decided to give that a go, and so that led up to this.
And while you were transitioning into a new role here, you were also transitioning at home with the first baby.
Yes, so April 11th, our daughter was born. So Eloise, she's at home with Dad right now, but I had to zip home quick just to say hi, and then and then came back. So yeah, lots of exciting times. Every day is a new adventure right now. But it's all going really well. So I'm excited to be here.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome. Okay, well, we're all set. Thank you, high school team, for being here.
That's a microphone, if you guys want to pass it around.
I'll give step up to the mic.
What's that?
I'm not going to dance. Good evening, everybody. I'm not going to dance for you tonight, but we're going to start off by reviewing our year in review with random drug testing, our canine searches, both indoor and outdoor, and then we have a couple of other updates that kind of fit under this umbrella too. We're going to be updating you this evening on how Rosecrans has gone in our second year of implementing that program, and then also we're going to, I think, provide some information about vaping as well. Didn't show up on the title there, didn't make the final cut here for the presentation. But it's just an update this year for the canine searches. This is information that we put together. We conducted 7 canine searches this year. which is kind of the number we try to shoot for. It's a challenge to get law enforcement to pull together. Multiple jurisdictions come together. We work with Waukesha County, we work with New Berlin, City of Waukesha, Muskego. So we try to get to the point where we do 7 searches. We aim to do 3 or 4 in, 3 or 4 outdoor, based on resources and availability. This year we did 4 indoor searches. We invariably try to cover between 3 to 7 3-day rooms. It kind of depends on the size of the classroom, the number of students, and also really what happens when we enter that room as well. This year during the 4 searches we had 8 indications, which means that the canine dog hit on a bag or an object that was in the classroom. The students are removed, dog went over and hit on an object. Could be a backpack, could be pair of shoes, wherever the case may be. We don't know why it indicates. That is a question we frequently get from a parent. Why does it indicate on the object? We actually don't know. We know that the dogs are trained to look for certain things. The dog liked that object, and that's really the information we have. In those 8 indications, we had 1 positive result of finding marijuana in the object, the backpack that was found. In the other 7 indications, there was no physical evidence, I guess, of that. In the case where we don't find physical evidence, we do communicate home to the family. We're working with Officer Hendrickson at the high school. She provides a lot of education for the family and the student. They have a lot of questions. Why was the bag hit on? Why was the car hit on if it's an outdoor search? She shares off what she knows about the situation and also what typically is the reason why something would be indicated on. In addition to the 4 indoor searches, we had 3 outdoor searches this year. It was actually a bit of a scramble to get the 3rd one in. There was something going on in the community the day that we had one of them scrambled or scheduled. So it kind of became something that we really had to come together on. The last one. It was awesome to get it done. We had, during the 3 outdoor searches, we, depending on the number of dogs, usually 3 to 5 dogs, we work our way through all of the lots and kind of maneuver through that way. 8 indications with no positive physical evidence found, any car that was searched. Anyone have any questions on that?
Yes, question. On the car searches, when you get a hit, is the dog involved in the search? They let them sniff through the car, or is it?
The dog does not sniff through the car.
Okay, so they're just around the outside of the car.
Yep. Yeah. The way our practice runs is the dog can't be in contact with the student or the car.
Are the students aware that a hit may be a hit, but it's really nothing, so that it's not like they're called out of the room and they're like, oh yeah, they're guilty?
We can't control that part, in terms of public perception. That's a really tough spot for a student to be in. We do talk with them about how they can approach that, how they can handle it, help problem solve that. We talk with the student, we search the car, we communicate to the family as best as we can what we know.
I'm just worried about the people in the room, their perception of what's going down.
If
it turns out to be negative, and
yeah, and we can't control that perception. We try to protect anonymity as much as we can, but there is a visual part to all of this. We have kids, they might be looking out the window, they might be sitting in that classroom. Social media is definitely part of that too. We try to be really sensitive to it, but it's definitely a challenge. All right, this time we're going to go to the second slide. I only have 2. So I put together some trend data, and this is as far back as I have for the district data. And it kind of just shows you a couple of trends, and I'll add one more piece to this. You can see that there's a pretty consistent effort the last several years to maintain the consistent number of searches. We were down a little bit last year. We had difficulty getting the number of dogs together we needed. I did conduct some research at the end of last school year with a number of metro suburban schools and how many searches they do. And we're certainly on the high end. It ranges from about 1 to 4, 1 to 5 searches. I would say the average is probably 3 to 4 searches, and we aim for 7. I feel really good about that. I think it sends the right message to our students. I think it sends the right message to the community that we're doing everything we can to support keeping our kids in a good path. You can see a slight trend downward overall in the number of indications as well. I think it's indications. I'm colorblind. But that's one of those things where that can be really hit or miss too. I mean, sometimes we might have 4 on one day, and the next day we might not have any. So, any questions on that?
So, 3 to 7 rooms. How many dogs are involved in?
When we do indoor searches, we have 1 dog.
Just the one.
And we have 1 class period, so it's a fast-moving process. We're averaging about 4 to 5 minutes per classroom, and we have to have the dog out of the building before the students are back in office. So it's a non-interruptive to the learning day, in that we do a hall clearing code, so the building is clear, the dog comes in and we go from room to room to room to room. And then when the bells ring for the next class period, the dog is out and the next class period begins. So it's really non-interruptive for learning too, which is good.
And you said this was based on a Waukesha, it says you do not have a dog that?
We have a dog, so when we do our indoor search, Sirius comes with Sean. When we do the outdoor searches, it's a much bigger production. We have usually around 11 to 1,200 cars in our lot. So we'll work with as many law enforcement jurisdictions as we can. I think, and I'm guessing here a little bit, I think Muskego probably works with other districts as well. I think we share the resource there. And other districts have been really awesome with helping us out. Any questions? All right, I'm going to transition to Ms. Bode.
Thanks. So we have just our random drug testing results for the 17-18 school year. So this year, our number of students that tested positive was actually decreasing, which was an awesome thing to see. We had 4 positive results this year. Of those 4 results, 1 test result was positive because a student refused to participate, and then she had that resulted in an 18-week parking revocation. 2 students tested positive for both nicotine and THC, so they had a double hit. And then 1 student tested positive for only nicotine. So that's just kind of this year's results. If you flip to the next one, Mr. Dunbar, you can see that our overall trend in the last 3 years between the number of violations and the number of students testing positive is on a downward trend, which I think is a great thing to see. Tells us as a community that the students are aware of the testing, that we're doing what we can to be proactive. And I feel certainly good. I think we all can feel good about seeing that trend line going down. That's what we would want to see.
When you get a double hit, is it punishment same as 1, or is it double?
So if a student is in a co-curricular activity and in parking, and the substance would be like marijuana, then it would be both.
But there's not a double thing for
Like
multiple substances.
Right, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's all in.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to just mention too about the RDT data, we have never had a positive indication for the PED panel. So the performance enhancing drug panel that we give, there hasn't been a positive indication on that. We've also never had a positive indication for anything other than cannabinoids and nicotine. So nothing such as heroin or cocaine, any other like big drugs that are out there. We have not had any positive indications for that at all, whether it's in a search, in our history together, and or in the random drug testing.
So does that include painkillers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, do you guys have any questions about that piece? So in the next 2 slides, you're going to see a request to modify the board policy slightly in each of the next 2 slides. The first one, if you look at the current policy, it's listed above, and I know you guys you've had these ahead of time, right? So you've read through them. So the current policy is listed above. Underneath is the update that we would like to add. The last sentence in the board policy currently reads that metabolites of nicotine will not be tested for parking permit holders. We would like to suggest that that be struck and taken out of the board policy so that we can continue to be proactive. We can have those conversations with parents and community members to let parents know if their son or daughter are using a nicotine product. And it would allow us to be consistent in our practice. So that would be one suggestion we would like to make.
What about 18-year-olds? They're allowed to legally?
They are allowed, so it would just be a conversation. So, and I suppose, I mean, at 18, they are 18, so we can certainly let a parent know that. I think that thinking, Rick, might have been one of the reasons why historically we put that into the policy.
That was.
But I feel like with the rise of some of the other stuff that we have going on, which we're going to talk about in a little while with vaping, I think being proactive and just really educating as much as we can is to the best benefit of everybody. So that would be one suggested modification that we make to the current policy. Do you have any specific questions?
So so right now in board docs, you have the link to the actual board policy, and then the changes are made in there. Like you can see what it looks like in board docs. That will come back for action in August, so you can think about it, still have action, and then it'll come back again end of August, the consent agenda, so it's not, you don't have to decide today.
And then,
You were still testing for it anyways. It's kind of a, really kind of a weird policy, because it says that you're tested for it, but then it doesn't really, I like it better the way that you have it now.
thank you.
Just, I don't know.
Yes, so I think it cleans it up a little bit.
Yes, definitely.
So, again, certainly open for discussion, but that would be a suggested request that we would like to make. On the next slide, you'll see a request to modify just an additional statement. The current policy with regards to random drug testing for co-curricular activities, as it currently reads, it says students become eligible for random drug testing on the first day they participate in a co-curricular activity or obtain a parking permit. And when we were reviewing that policy, it struck me that if it says students become eligible for random drug testing on the first day they participate in a co-curricular, they're actually eligible for random drug testing when the form is signed. And so we would want to have the board policy be in alignment with the practice that we're doing. So students consent, parents consent when the registration forms are completed, but with the way it reads, I just want to make sure that we are being clear in our communication that when the form is signed, that they go into the pool, not that it's the first day in March when they participate in a spring sport. So that's the other language we're looking to modify.
So just to clarify, as soon as completing and submitting the random drug testing form is required in order to participate in the parking co-curricular.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
So what would we do, I mean, so you're saying if they sign the form in fall, don't participate in the spring, they're in the pool, they test positive, they're not in a co-curricular at the time, so what do you do?
Well, the penalty would, the violation would carry on.
springtime?
Yep. I just think of
For an athlete that's out of season.
Oh, okay, that's right, sorry about that.
Were you screening those kids out then that weren't?
right now they're all
They
in
were
the
all in
pool,
there
right?
anyways,
But
we just weren't delineating it.
correct. The way the language reads though, it was just something that struck me, like could it be a loophole for somebody to say,
Correct.
well, they weren't in sports yet? And I just know that as a system, we're tight with, and we want to be proactive, and I just feel like potentially if we look at cleaning up that piece of the policy, it would just be very clear.
Do you think it was put in there for the multi-sport kids? Because when, I mean, I know a lot of kids in sports, say a kid tests positive now, when they play football, they go out for a sport in between so they can serve their suspension instead of in their number one sport. Is that why it was written the way it was?
The original language.
It was an oversight,
Yeah, I just,
all of us.
I think
Because
it's.
I know there are,
There's no way of avoiding what you're talking about, because
I
it's
know.
not for us to say what their sport is. And this wouldn't change it. I mean, either way doesn't really change it, because they wouldn't be caught then, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this was an oversight on this. So there was more deliberation on the nicotine portion. This, no.
Thank you.
So staying clean all year long.
that reminds me.
Important.
So, and great segue to the next slide, which is an additional effort that we are putting forward. We, in the 17-18 school year, began the practice of random breathalyzing at school dances. So we did that at homecoming, winter dance, and prom. This year successfully, we partnered with the Muskego Police Department, and we were successful in that we had no positive results for the random breathalyzing. So another step that as a high school team, administration team, community, we're putting forward as an effort to make sure that our students are making great choices.
And how did you randomize that?
So every 20th student was chosen.
There was a number selected prior to each dance, and then we had a clicker, so students were funneled through to a single point. Where it got interesting is when dates came up, and they were side by side, and the question was, who's going first? and they had to make that fatal decision. And the unfortunate reality was there were some gentlemen who forgot to allow the lady to go first, and that person was the person to go, and they ended up being selected. But obviously it worked out okay for everyone. But
Really, it was very quick and very efficient. We never had a line of students. There was no pile up. It was very, very quick.
Do we want to add graduation practice to this? I'm serious.
yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's
it's up for discussion.
See what happens next year. If you have another instance, and you
Do-
may want to do that just as a deterrent for if no
Sure.
other reason. And even if you don't do it, you may want to announce that you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Certainly, students were well aware that we were recognizing, which is good. It was a good buzz to have out there. So.
Were you able to do?
Yeah, no pun intended. Sorry.
Are you able to do beyond that random testing, or you just stick to that? For example, if somebody's in there and you can see that they're intoxicated.
You can always.
Pull them out.
A police officer would assist at that point.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So what happens if you would have found a student that had violated, they just get kicked out of the dance or the activity, or is there further?
So if a student were to be found under the influence, they would have a in-school violation. They would have a suspension, a potential ticket, and students who would be positive at the dance for breathalyzer would then have a 1-year suspension from participation in dances.
Did you see a decline in the census of these dancers at all? Did you see?
And no, I'm sorry.
Participation.
Participation.
No, attendance stayed the same.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, just curious if it deterred people to go.
Is this the first year you did that, or did you do it for the first year?
So what happens if somebody, their parent allowed them, or like some person had gone to reunion and probably wouldn't show up, or if a parent had allowed them to have a drink before going to the dance, is that something we don't allow them to the dance for? How do we handle that? That's
Absolutely.
Pardon?
That's absolutely, we don't allow them for that.
Well, I mean, but then do we proceed to suspend an in-school suspension?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's our code.
As long as they're aware of that?
Well, the word on the street is they know.
Yeah.
They think everyone, I thought, my daughter thought everyone was going to get breathalyzer.
That's good. That's great. Bring it out there. I'm okay with that.
No.
When they happen.
You know, better yet, spread it next
Yeah.
time. That
I
administration.
think even the people in the outside.
Well, we don't have a policy on this anyway, and you're not asking for one, right? Because I'd rather not have one.
We're not.
I'd rather go the way we went this year. It falls under our practice, and
Yep.
that way you can modify it and stay on your feet on it.
It is an optional participation at these events, so we have the right to do so.
Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Herman.
And thank you so much for the questions around all of these. To me, it exemplifies one of the many reasons why I absolutely love this place. And by the way, I'm sorry to be disrespectful, our Warriors won. We're going to state. We've been the last 3 years at this game, late to this meeting because of that game, and it's an awesome meeting anyway. So, but getting back to that, because of the questions that you guys ask, and again, grateful for our leadership team here, how much passion there's around this topic, and us trying to come together to ask that tough question. What else can we do to try to give kids another reason to say no, to stay away from the decisions that we know are dangerous, to say the least? So your support through all this has been just outstanding. Rosecrans is an example of one of those things where I recall after our first year, our random drug testing was working great. The message was out there, but through our conversations with parents, it kind of hurt to make that call to a parent and say, hey, we've identified that your student is possibly using, and we're not sure what we can offer for you, but you allowed us to kind of build this bridge in this partnership with Rosecrans to be able to bring someone in 1 day a week who has run very successfully some individual group sessions and connected with some of our struggling students and helped them develop some coping skills, someone who's an expert in the field, someone who's worked with our own staff and helped them identify what are the look-fors, what are some coaching things you can give to your students or the people that you connect with. It's just been awesome. So just this past year, he worked with 19 students individually who were referred or identified through various reasons. And that was the support system we didn't have 3 years ago. So we're excited about that. We now are in our second year with a new person who has started to grow some roots and looking for ways to expand on what he's doing. We've had some great conversations about how do we expand these services, potentially talking about how do we help start to educate students maybe even as early as middle school and things like that. So the students that have connected with him have given us very positive feedback about having that resource and having just a safe place that isn't a school official that they can start to talk to about their decisions outside of school and how to just kind of cope with some of the pressures that they face. So excited to be moving forward with that again. That will kind of stay on the same track. Through our work with Rosecrans and kind of all of this, we're, as I said before, constantly looking at, okay, what is that next step? Whether it's random breathvising at graduation, which I absolutely love that idea, or we've talked about sporting events or different things like that. We're constantly trying to see what is our data telling us, what are the issues that are showing up, what are students talking about, what does our own internal data show. And this last year, it was pretty painful to watch vaping explode across the nation, to be honest with you. This isn't a Muskego problem by any stretch of the matter, but our own internal data was frightening. We had 59 students get caught, which I will tell you is probably one of the lowest infractions that a student actually gets caught for because it's so easy to hide. We'll show some things a little bit later on that will kind of demonstrate that. But even though we caught 59, we were well aware based on conversations that it's happening with greater frequency. Of those 59, we had 12 repeat offenders, which to us was a challenge and was frustrating. The next slide shows us what our current administrative guidelines would define as a typical set of consequences. So it used to be a day's suspension on that first offense, and this year we added a mandatory parent meeting and having the student and family sign a behavior contract. On that second offense, again, we increased the punitive measure of additional days suspension, so we removed the student from learning opportunities, and we again have that parent meeting. And then on the third offense, we again continue to extend the days out of a learning environment, and we have the same parent meeting. So it felt more on the punitive side than the restorative side, so we've worked to kind of partner with Rosecrans again to say, okay, what else can we do to add in that opportunity to help a student understand why this is dangerous, why this is helpful, how can we help arm the parents with the right information, what other kind of things can we do about this. We didn't just partner with Rosecrans, we also very much reached out to every other district we had connections with, and this is again one of those moments that make me so proud to be a part of Muskego, Norway. Speaking to principals in other places, they honestly were freaking out. Like many other districts are still having conversations around how do we pass random drug testing in our community? How do we get parent support and school board to support this message? Because sometimes it's tough. Sometimes a student is escorted from class in front of their peers, walks out to the parking lot to the chagrins of their peers that, hey, there's a dog out there, I know why that dog's here. Those aren't always easy questions to answer, but there's a powerful message from this school board and our administration that drugs are serious, and we're going to partner together with our parents and everyone in our building, our advisors, our coaches, everyone we can partner with, and we're going to do everything we can to try to help families support the students through this challenging time. So again, what I heard from other places was reaffirming to the steps that we're taking as a team, and certainly from the support we feel here. The rationale is, unfortunately, vaping is a gateway. Business of dealing, they're always looking for the next in, and the fear is what is going to be next mixed into a vaping device because of the temperature at which it burns. There's all sorts of really frightening data around what could happen. The additional aspect of nicotine is highly addictive, and students sometimes look at this as it's completely harmless. They're using this to get people off of smoking. It can't be bad. Again, the powerful marketing around this is just absolutely insane. Yet some of the things that are out there, they have the potency in one small jewel pod that is about the size of a tiny thumb flash drive is a full pack of cigarettes worth of nicotine. So innocent student decides to do this because they think the smoke cloud looks cool, all of a sudden has this nic buzz and doesn't really understand what it is, and it's really scary once they get started. Unfortunately, what we found from most other districts is they are all taking a punitive approach. Some other districts, if you could go back in, other districts are still kind of partnering with our police department, as are we. There are other municipalities that that are working to develop citations. Vaping kind of was this new craze that went out. I'm excited that our police department has also started to investigate that with our district's attorney to look at how can we help leverage students and help them understand that this is dangerous, whether it's happening on our school grounds or out in the community. So those are some things that are happening. And then additionally, what are the proactive steps we can take to help educate our parents? What are the look-forwards? What are the things that can happen? So we're constantly trying to revamp this. Now looking at the next steps, how we kind of brought that all together to talk about what we're doing. We created a presentation to our staff. Again, if you want to take around our wonderful box of goodies, this is painful to me because this is all stuff confiscated from students throughout the year, and unfortunately this is one of about 3 boxes. So again, it's one of those where though the number that were actually caught, the number where we actually just found a vape stuck up in the ceiling tiles of a bathroom, and you obviously don't know who put that there, but we get information from students, and we do our best to follow up on it. Some of these devices are really small. They are, again, the size of what I would describe as a flash drive, or about the size of a credit card. And again, so you might walk into a bathroom and you see 5, and I'm just going to say boys for this instance, standing around in the bathroom. And I'm not sure what your high school experiences were about, but usually if you were going to hang out in a bathroom that, and again, our custodial staff does a great job, but they don't usually smell that great, why would you hang out just to have a conversation in a bathroom? If you aren't doing something that you don't want to be seen doing, of all the beautiful places in that building, the atriums, the cafeteria, all those wonderful spaces, why would you be hanging out in a bathroom? And then all of a sudden you see this little looming cloud of vapor, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, who has it? And now the quest becomes, how do you find amongst these 5 individuals where this tiny little device has gone? And again, I don't need to be graphic, but the reality of where you can hide that and how quickly a student can perhaps crotch it is what they describe it. Or what ladies have found out is if you have a messy bun up, you can slide it in your hair really quick, or very common in the yoga pants or in other places. So it's a bit of a cat and mouse game to try to stay on the front side of this. So again, we're really trying to talk about how do we educate families. What are the signs to look for? If you get in your car and you see a layer of film across the inside of your car, your child is likely vaping in your car. So there's a presentation that we shared with our staff. We shared it with our families via Infinite Campus. We've also shared some information with the middle schools because unfortunately this isn't starting just at the high school. We hear kids talking as early as 6th grade, knowing what vapes are and talking about students vaping on the bus or situations like that. Additionally, we're certainly constantly trying to revamp our curriculum. Our health teachers have a great passion around this. They're looking at how else can we educate our students in these areas. And then again, adding that behavior contract to students and parents. And we'll also be adding on a partnership with Rosecrans in this, so there'll be an opportunity for a student to, again, on a second offense, reduce the suspension days in agreement that they'll engage in some proactive, healthy decision making. So, there's a lot of stuff thrown at you. I apologize, I was talking fast, but any questions on any of this?
You had mentioned you were working with the PD as far as doing some city ordinances or anything. We approached them a couple of years ago and got nowhere with it. Where are they looking at doing now?
I appreciate that, and thank you for asking, and we've continued to ask and ask and ask again. I believe there's a new district attorney as of this year, and what they've been doing is they've been following the state, and because it's blowing up everywhere, I want to say it's somewhere in the Fox Valley area that they were kind of partnered with and watching what they were pushing through, and they were optimistic that they were going to be able to follow suit, but they didn't necessarily want to be the first one out of the gate.
Now doesn't Oak Creek, not Oak Creek, Oconomowoc have an ordinance?
So they took, I don't know if it was a new one or not, but they really allowed anything nicotine-based to fall under the tobacco clause. So I know Heartland has one, several other districts that we partnered with did as well. So they're out there, and they range from $50 to $150.
Right. That's what the problem is it doesn't always show up for every vaping incident. So how are they?
You can test. So the vials, you basically have to break the vaping device, and you can test the liquid itself to see if it contains nicotine.
Yeah.
So, and many of them have right on the vape juice, and that was a pushback from the police department, and I understand that.
Right.
But the reality is, if we don't test the vape juice, there's no way to know if a student is mixing something else in there. And again, I apologize, I'm grateful that we haven't gotten any parent complaints yet that we've damaged their vaping devices. But I'm okay taking those phone calls, and I am. We need to do that. It's another proactive step to be able to help them understand that, okay, this, at some point it's going to be not just vape juice. And it's really scary to think about the things that are happening in other places. This is one of the hottest topics in any educational journey around the nation.
Are you starting to see signs in public places that it's not allowed? Restaurants, like anywhere, you're not going to smoke in there, you're not vaping in our place, so.
Lucky this passed the ordinance about vaping.
Yeah.
So does so if it doesn't have nicotine in it, it's fine? Against
The policy's possession or use of a vaping device.
Okay.
So we just wouldn't
That's
do
what
a
regardless of
ticket for the
content.
nicotine.
Okay.
So the ticket would help us because, again, the highly addictive nature of it, and unfortunately, the vast majority appear to have nicotine in it, and that's the really concerning because all of a sudden students are craving that, and they're going to the bathroom quite frequently.
Unfortunately, the strength of the nicotine is continually rises too. So it originally started more as like 3 mil. Well, it started off kind of water vapor, and then it's just increasingly built. So some of the bottles that we've confiscated are like 75% nicotine. So they're really, really high in concentrate. And so that is also like that's a legitimate conversation to be having with the parent too about the strength of what they're putting in their bodies. So.
The Juul device, wherever that is, it's like looks like a flash drive. Whoever has that one. Maybe look over at ours
That's the
computer.
pop.
Sure. That's what it would look like on our computer.
Yeah.
It could plug that device in. It's a hair longer than that. You never see it. That Juul device is it's chargeable in a USB drive. Kid can plug it right into his iPod charger, and the cartridge that comes out of it is like the size of the end of my finger. Has 20 hits of like 20 puffs on it, and in those 20 puffs, there's as much nicotine as an entire pack of cigarettes. And I'm certain kids don't contemplate how much nicotine they're putting into their body at any one given instant. And the addiction to that is really pretty compelling and strong. The other ones that we sent around, most of them open up, and kids add their own mixtures. It's some quick Googling, you can see the kinds of things kids are mixing in with their mixtures because it dissipates it. So whether it's a benzodiazepine, something like alprazolam, whether it's getting the right temperature to make cocaine become aspirated or whatever the case may be, it's horrifying because a kid doesn't necessarily know what they're putting into their body. Your point about there doesn't even have to be nicotine, and it might not just be nicotine either. Pretty scary. So the education for us is, we started with education probably back in December. We started building a presentation. The middle school principals actually asked for it too. They're like, wow, that's a lot. There's a lot going on quickly. So.
No, I just like to thank you guys for doing everything, especially, I think parent involvement is the key. Even if you find out that the dog had a hit but nothing was done with it, the parents will at least be wondering who had it in their car. Was it them? Did they give a ride to somebody that had it? It could be any number of things, but at least has the parent aware.
They're great conversations. They're not always easy or fun, but I will tell you they're extremely important conversations to have.
And tomorrow you'll send out an end of the year report to families through IC.
Okay.
I do find it surprising, to be honest with you, that we've never had heroin or cocaine or any of those stuff, because there's always that little thing of heroin high. You hear that throughout some of the kids, and I'm so surprised. This is the first I've heard that it's been negative.
It's my understanding they've never had an arrest for anyone under 18.
Correct. That's a public perception in many places. I will tell you, when I worked in Oconomowoc, people describe Oconomowoc as heroin high. Unfortunately, when a student loses their life to an addiction, it does raise lots of conversations around that, and people like to track it back of where did it start. Most of the schools that we've partnered with to talk about their efforts, no one has found anything other than nicotine, marijuana. Sometimes you'll see some of the other entry-level drugs, but no one has found heroin at high school level. It's typically a drug that's a step removed from high school. But unfortunately, they started the behavior path that can lead to that. And it's like, now's the time where we need to develop those coping mechanisms to say, how do I deal with my health, my stress, my mental health issues or challenges or family stressors. So I believe here's where we have the opportunity to build the skills to stay away from that. So though it's not here, the decision-making opportunities that we have to reinforce the right things, that is our chance.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go Warriors. Friday night.
You better take inventory, make sure you get it all.
We haven't counted.
Todd, where do they play?
Friday night at Quaco Field up in Mequon.
Hey, look at that.
Home of the,
What are they done?
I can't remember their minor league team, but it's a beautiful field up in Mequon.
It's right out of Michigan at Concordia.
Yeah, is it Quaco Field or
Capital.
Capco?
See you Friday night, you count?
No, I'm gonna wedding in Chicago.
It's Friday afternoon. That's right, 2 o'clock. I'll see you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you. All right, so now Kari will provide an update, our annual report on seclusion and restraint.
Yes. So Act 125 is the seclusion and restraint law in the state of Wisconsin. And as a part of that legislation, we are required by law to present to the board the number of students who have been secluded in the district, the number of students with IEPs that is included in that population, and also the number of seclusion and restraint incidences as they occurred. So I have up here oh yeah, you can see it, okay. I have up here the board memo. There's also a PowerPoint that is attached. It is sideways, so you will either have to turn your computer or turn your head. I apologize for that. So I'm just gonna speak from the board memo here. So seclusion is defined as involuntary confinement in which a student is restricted from being able to leave the room. So, for example, if I was secluding Tracy, I would be standing in front of the door and refusing to allow her to pass through the door to leave. A situation in which you might do that is if a student is attempting to elope and you know that they're exiting the building could result in substantial, significant injury. A lot of our schools are on busy streets, things of that nature. The other thing that we have to report on is restraint. And that refers to a restriction that immobilizes or reduces the ability of a student to freely move his or her torso, arms, legs, or head. There are some approved restraint holds. We call them protective holds. We have 2 in-district coaches that train our staff in crisis prevention intervention. They are retrained on a biannual basis and receive the most updated training and then come back and train our staff on the appropriate holds. But more importantly, they also spend, it's a 2-day training, and they spend the first day and a half really teaching staff how to de-escalate students so that we don't find ourselves in a position where we have to seclude or restrain a student. As you will notice there in the chart, the first column is the school year, most recent school year at the top of that first row. You will see the number of seclusion and restraint events. We had 84 this year. That is an increase over some of the past years. The number of students that were involved in those events, there were 11 students involved in those events. And of those students, all 11 of those students were children identified with disabilities. One of the things that we have done here in Muskego is we have been very proactive in ensuring that we have trained trainers for crisis prevention intervention. We require all of our special education and pupil services staff to be trained in that. In addition to that, building crisis teams are also trained in how to, number one and most importantly, de-escalate students who may be emotionally dysregulated, but then if there is no other option, they are trained to either seclude them so they can't leave the location and put themselves at imminent harm or risk, or somebody else in imminent harm or risk. And if they need to go to the next step, excuse me, and they place that student in a protective hold, they are trained to do that in a manner that would not harm the student or staff member. Any questions?
So for this chart, okay, there's a huge increase, 84 to 23. Is that because of those 4 individuals that you took on with, you know, it's kind of hard to tell from this chart. Is it just one child that's boosting that number up by over 60, times, or is it like a mirage of all of the students in all the situations? You can't really tell with this chart.
So that's intentional to protect the identity of students. But what I can share with you is that we did have one student who had some more significant things, and we have taken very measurable and strategic steps to get that student to a better place.
Because at first glance, it just looks like, oh my gosh, we're restraining everybody, which I don't think that's the case. But I just think that, yeah, it's not individualized enough or specific enough to tell.
Right.
But what the situation is.
And I appreciate the inquiry. You know, anytime we see an increase in seclusion and restraint incidences, you know, that is concerning to us. I think there's potentially two reasons here. I know there's one, I think we're tracking our data better. It's important to know we have about 5,000 students in the district. Of those 5,000 students, we have found ourselves in a position where 11 of them may have needed some additional more restrictive measures to protect them. And really the intent of the law is to protect the child from harming themselves or harming somebody else. So we only place people or children in holds or young adults in holds when they are in imminent risk of harming themselves or someone else. It can't be that a student has thrown a chair. That's property damage. We just stand down and back off as long as we have cleared the room and no other individual is at risk of being injured. It would have to be that they would be in a position where they would potentially significantly harm themselves or somebody else.
What are the two instances from 16, 17, and 15, 16 where you have a student without disabilities that was restrained or secluded? Give me an example. What would cause that?
So I can give you an example of what it might be. I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm just...
But typically it's a student who has perhaps some trauma in their background and is not identified as a child necessarily with a disability, but that needed some intervention because they were running out of a school building. We've had an incident where a student has tried to leave the building. Student had a trauma history, was placed with a family that was not their family of origin for important reasons. And we needed to make sure that that little one didn't get out into a busy intersection. We've had other situations where we might be in the valuation process. The student has moved recently into the district or has had some recent trauma history. And we're seeing a significant behavioral response from that child as a result of those circumstances. And so that would be documented then in our software system.
Are the instructional aides, or when you say instructional aides, those the special ed aides, are they trained?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time where they're the only one in the building?
The instructional assistant is the only person trained in the building. That would be a very rare circumstance. That would mean your student services, your principal, all of your special ed teachers. I can't imagine that occurring.
It said on the PowerPoint, the previous, that there's 200 staff trained.
Yeah, I know, I saw
Within
that.
the
I just
district,
know
yeah.
of an incident that I was asking. I just didn't know if that was even possible because I didn't know how, you hear things, so that's why I was
No,
wondering.
it's great. If you want to talk about specifics, I'd be happy to.
Absolutely. Because there could have been other people there that I don't.
Yeah, I can assure you that it's as a requirement of employment, all of our special education teachers are required, as well as our special ed instructional assistants within the first year of hire, and then all of them need to renew every 3 years. And that goes the same now for our pupil services staff.
I think it's kind of interesting that you said like the trauma in the background. I went to an in-service at Children's called Trauma Informed Care, which is a catchphrase right now. And they're talking about ACTS. It's some sort of, testing that they can do on children to find out how much trauma they've had in their past and such. And it's not even so much kids, but even staff in general.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of interesting to see if that was something that you were thinking about implementing to see how traumatizing this is for your staff.
Yeah. So one of the things that we recently did is apply for the mental health grant. We're awaiting approval for that, but also we received the safety grant, and as a part of those, I think you're talking about ACE.
ACE, that's right, you're correct.
So that is a screener that identifies trauma history, things of that nature, and risk for trauma behaviors. So it allows us to interrupt those cycles. So that would be a screener that could be conducted. And then in addition to that, there is a requirement for training staff on trauma-informed care,
Right.
which is really exciting. One of the things that the Department of Public Instruction, including Dr. Evers, has really brought forward is that it's important for us as adults to assess our own mental health, because that gives us insight into how to respond to young people with mental health and trauma concerns. So
It's quite interesting.
it is. I have a committee I think you want to join. Excellent.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? The next item is our draft 2018-19 IM goal. So as you might recall, the board approved our 5-year strategic plan in May. Then annually, we set goals based on our focus areas. And so what you see attached is a draft of, the front page typically stays the same, except for the graphic might change year to year, but the same information is on there. Our vision, our mission, our values, our commitments, our 3 focus areas, and you might recall that orange area is now just kind of a overarching, we're always continuously improving with our highly effective personnel and expert teaching, and our sound stewardship of resources, strong community support, as well as exemplary student learning and engagement. The back side denotes the measures that we track to make sure that we have a strong, thriving organization. And so there are a lot of things we track, but we don't necessarily have a SMART goal in every single one of those areas, but we track them. We have a goal, we call them dashboards, and so that information is available. And in our quality report, you might recall in October when we get together to share our cascading of our goals to buildings and departments, you also are able to see our quality report from the year previous. And many of these measures you'll see are right in there. And then the 2018-19 goals are articulated here, where we expect our employee engagement survey results to be, retention, also in the green area, process and procedures for advertising, sponsorships, and establishing an educational foundation. Complete referendum projects and determine phase 2 of additional master plan projects. So you can see those down under exemplary student learning and engagement. We have goals around reading and math and growth, not just achievement, but growth for students. And then student engagement, as well as making sure that students have plans, which is that ACP process, academic and career plans, and our ACT scores. So that that is where we're at right now. We appreciate any feedback or thoughts about that.
100% lofty goal.
I have a question on surveys. When we set out parent satisfaction surveys, student engagement surveys, teacher surveys, how much of the population is that everybody who falls in that category? So is it sent to all parents?
Yeah.
And it's sent to all staff?
Yeah, the students, it starts at, is it 2nd grade? I think
So all
student
students
engagement,
above 2nd grade?
student engagement starts, I believe, at 2nd grade.
But it's all students above that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And do we have any sort of community survey that we do?
We do that, we do community survey, well, not community surveys for the referendum we did.
Yes. But I mean, I don't know, any sort of.
No, not on a regular basis, no. We'll do sort of the specialty community surveys when we get input. So we did a community survey when we were developing the
Vision of a graduate.
Thank you, vision of a graduate. So, when we need their input, we get it, and then we actually ask the question, is there value in this Norway career program? So, and actually that first bullet that you're talking about, under that yellow 100%, we were actually at what, 99% this last year on the ACP when we started it with 6th and 9th grade, and the population that we were missing actually were some of the students who have transition plans through their IEP, and they weren't entered into the ACP, so we were, it's like still a goal for us, because there are times where it's like, oh, we forget about that, or we need to make sure that we have a strong process to include all students.
I like the retention is, I think, huge, because I know how much it costs for orientation of an individual, it's so expensive. Is there any thought that you're thinking of maybe doing over a period of time, like 5 years, 10 years? Because this just says a year. Will remain, 90% of the year, which I would hope, so. Was there any? Have you
We do look at
looked into-
longevity. That's part of our metrics. We do look at whether or not we're retaining our teachers, what is the average in our region.
Right.
And we regard that. It hasn't risen to a point where we feel like we need to work on it. We have a strong retention year to year, which then leads us into a strong retention, over 5 years.
Tracy, that retention isn't for a year, it's for the year. So,
Within the year, yeah, that they stay,
right,
90% stay.
of all staff.
Yes.
So under student learning and engagement, your STAR assessment, did you have a STAR assessment goal last year? I see you have it at, will be at or above 50. What was it last year?
It was 50 as well. The year prior to that, it was 35.
But I don't think we had any areas under 50 last year.
No, and that, yeah, true.
So your goal is to remain.
Yeah, school goals, what will happen, school goals will look at the percent of, and we can't do this at the district level, but at the school level, they'll look at the percent of students meeting that 50 SGP. So then they're looking at, it's a different kind of metric. So we want the overall average to be 50 or more. But at the school level, they look at what is the percentage of students actually meeting that SGP, so that the students that aren't, we have to make sure what's going on. Are they advanced learners? Are they struggling learners? Are, what's going on with the students who aren't making the 50? They might have a mean of 50, but they look deeper into that at the school level. And so that's why it's really important. And the reason we keep with 50 is that that's what STAR says is a year. It's a year's growth. And so it's not that we want to boost that up, we want to make sure, and we haven't met it at every school, but overall, by grade level, at the district level, when we look at the median, we make it at the 50. But not every student is at 50. Does that make sense? So every student isn't making a year's growth. We want 100% of them making it.
I was just wondering why we're
Yeah.
not challenging ourselves a little bit more. We have the same goals we had last year.
Yeah.
We met it last year, I'm sure we're gonna meet it this year.
Good question. But what we see is that it's not at every school, every grade.
Can I ask you a question on the parent satisfaction survey?
Sure.
So I'll be honest, I haven't taken it in a while because I would get frustrated taking it because I couldn't answer. Honestly, I felt because it would be a general question. And at least we started doing, we could do more than one, because it used to be just one, and I'd be like, whoa, I don't have the same perception for both my kids. But, so, having more than one teacher, when you're asking a general question about are they valued, maybe first, third, and fourth hour they are, but definitely not, so I had a really hard time filling it out. And I don't know if that's changed, because I quit. Because I felt like my information was not going to be helpful. I don't know if there's a way to make that drill
More
down.
specific to a teacher.
See,
Well,
and not even that, maybe depart. I don't know. I don't know. Even as soon as they split up teachers, I was like, I had sometimes I had a totally different of one teacher versus another. I don't know if there's a way to do it. It's complex, but I don't know if there's a way to.
Well, I can tell you what we are going to be doing. And this may or may not be, it's not going to be helpful to you, other than maybe understanding that teachers will be receiving some feedback individually. Our students will be taking surveys on their teachers individually. And those results will be going specifically to the teachers. So that is a process that we piloted.
My kid will be like, yeah, they're great.
Yeah, we
Well,
piloted
it's
last
last
year.
year before grades are,
Yeah.
No, that's how they do it. I mean, I get evaluated every single semester for my students from Marquette and UWM, but it's given before the grades are given out, so that there isn't you know, we don't see the result, like, so the survey's given out to the students, they fill it out. We don't see them, we give the grades, then we see the results of the survey, so it really doesn't affect.
So that process is just being worked out this year
That's good.
through our category 3.
I do remember doing it like that, because I was like, oh, that's kind of getting at what I struggled with. And I think that my kids would know better because they're not always 100% honest with me about how they feel, you know, so.
Those are good points too.
You've got things like Infinite Campus and things like that, you can give feedback on teacher about. Because when my girls went to Infinite Campus, it was just kind of getting the steam rolling, and there were ones that were religious about it, and others that
Oh, yeah.
they'd wait 3 weeks. And
I was very frustrated with him thinking.
It's still happening, so.
Well,
But that's just an example,
the
so.
grades being, the grades being entered, the way the teachers used it. Yeah, because it got to be like, I need an Excel spreadsheet just to figure out what teacher had what website and putting information where. And then, I think middle school used it the least amount in my experience.
Well, elementary uses the expression.
Well, I didn't even use it in elementary, but once you get to, for middle school, they started to have different teachers and, you know, 7th, 8th grade. Then high school was a much better, you know, definitely a step up from what they did in.
As a parent, you still have some resources that you know about, you know. The surveys, so with the parent surveys, we provide feedback on each teacher. I haven't taken this parent survey in quite a while. So if I go on there, it's not like, how do you feel about your child's teacher? And it's good, bad, whatever, but there's no specific.
It's not specific
No,
to
that's
teachers.
for what I remember, I don't recall.
Not yet.
Are we planning on doing?
Well, we're doing the student piece first. I mean, it's really important for us to, it's important for them to get the feedback from the students, which I just need to say that that's very rare. It's very rare for school districts to provide that feedback to teachers, K-12, very common in colleges and universities.
Do you think that's a lofty goal, 4.11 to 4.16? Because I know it sounds minor, I think that's going to be a big lofty goal to get that increase.
Yeah, it is. We also, this is part of our work with Studer.
Okay.
And they say if it's below a 4, you would have a 0.1 increase. That's the stretch goal. If it's above a 4, it's a 0.05. That's their stretch goal. They say because once you get into the 4s, you're doing really well.
You are
trying to get that to.
That's why I was wondering if that's kind of, because I mean, we get surveyed at where I work all the time to get things to increase by any percentage, so it's hard.
Yeah, and we spent so much time, I mean, our major effort over the last few years was the employee engagement, and we saw that soar completely. And now our shift, a lot of our action plans are around parent engagement and getting that piece, really strong and have strong tactics about that. So that's our effort now. Not that we walk away from our employee engagement, we still have those, but they're kind of, we call them hardwired. We do our rounding, we do our 30, 90-day interviews. Those are, part of our process. And now we have to look at parent engagement and figure out how we're going to be supporting that in a stronger way, and student engagement.
Yeah, you do you have the advertising. My biggest pitch was while I was running, just to make it so that it's legible and understandable by people of all levels of education. Because sometimes the paperwork that's sent out is at a 13th grade level, and you have people in these districts that are at the 5th grade level, so that's always good.
Okay, and anything else? Any other comments, questions, concerns? We'll bring this back for action then in August. Okay. And then our contributions to the profession is just a standard agenda item. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. Moving on to other reports. Anyone have any board member reports? None. I do not have a president's report, and we do not
to approve additional open enrollment seats for the 2018-2019 school year as presented.
So moved.
Discussion?
So, just sharing the memo here from Jeff. It's just, it starts off with just a recap of what happened in January, the seats that were approved by the board, which was 4K, 11 seats, and then also 6 seats at first grade. And so where we're at right now is we believe that we have space to, so what we have is we have 8 of the 11 filled so far with 4K. So we had to put some students on a list that's through lottery. We'll go back to offer more, trying to get to the 11 seats that we had offered. We only had 1 applicant for first grade, so, or we had 3, I think, and then, but only 1 said yes because of the schools that we had seats open at. But now we're at a point that we believe we can say that we could also offer 4 kindergarten seats, 3 second grade, 2 and 2 ninth grade seats. And so that's further down in the memo and what that would equate to from us, from the standpoint of revenue at, you know, the state's 79 or 7,000, what is it, $7,300 per student who would come in through open enrollment.
Questions? So, what happens when moves in the district between now and
We feel
August?
yeah.
I mean, obviously you have to let them in, but this,
Yeah.
you know, so we do have some buffer room in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to item 10B, gifts, grants, and requests.
Motion to accept with thanks gifts as noted below. Muskego High School cheer from Cheer Booster Club, offset expenses for cheer team state competition, $2,369.52. Muskego High School robotics PPG grant renewal, $1,000. Christopher Malpin, $500, and PPG matching funds, $500.
Could I have a motion?
So,
One of those, one
One of
one
the-
seconded. Discussion? Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to 11. 11A, 2018-19 budget. Folder spot. When there's specific questions regarding the budget. So we hold it there. If you want to ask. None. Moving on to 12, information follow-up. Questions on any of those specific items there? You didn't report specifically on any of those? Hearing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 8:29. Thank you, everyone.